guys, it's Reagan and welcome to the start of another reading vlog. This reading vlog I'm really excited about because one, I'm making my hyperfixation on a certain fantasy series end, but two, I'm gonna be reading two of my most anticipated fall book selects and I can't wait, and I feel like I'm gonna love both of them so much. But before we dive into the books themselves, first a word from this video sponsor. Hi guys, I'm so excited to say that I'm partnering up with Cozy Earth again for this video. I have been working with Cozy Earth to test out and trial their deluxe bedding set. But if you're not familiar, Cozy Earth is a brand that offers an incredible selection of all of the cozy items you might need in your life, from clothing to bedding to towels. They truly have it all. Everything's high quality, cozy, comfortable. And recently Clay and I swapped out our entire sheet set with the Cozy Earth Deluxe Bedding Bundle, and I am here with our first official update. It has been wonderful. First off, these sheets are so soft. I get into them every single night and I feel like I'm in a hotel, but probably my favorite part about them is just how cooling they are. Clay and I definitely had the wrong type of sheets for the climate that we live in. I live in Texas. It's hot here for most of the year, and we also are just like hot sleepers, and transitioning to sheets that are designed to help keep you cool while you're sleeping, I will never go back. It is amazing. I feel soft and cozy, but also cool, which I feel like is a hard combination to balance. I'm also happy to report I do officially have a Cozy Earth coupon code. If you use the code PerusProject35, you're able to save 35% on your Cozy Earth order. I will continue to check in about my thoughts and feelings about this set, but so far, so great. I have been sleeping so soundly. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive back into the video. So let's go ahead and dive into the TBR for this video because I feel like it's a fantastic one. First, we have Godkiller by Hannah Kaner, which I've literally only heard fantastic things about. It has some of my all-time favorite tropes, including a quest full of unlikely companions and a main character who kills gods for a living but has to go on a quest with a god she's not allowed to kill. And then we also have a very beloved new release, A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. This follows our main character. I believe this book has romance, but it also follows our main character who's been kind of haunted by visions of the High Fairy King her entire life. And I believe she goes to this house by her favorite author and she like enters a competition. She meets an annoying boy there and like things begin to kind of spiral out of control. Again, I've heard such good things about this, like academic rivals, vibey. I already know Ava Reed's writing is stunning. So I don't know, I have such a good feeling about both of these books. I'm really looking forward to picking both of these books up, and I'm hoping they're both 5 out of 5 stars. It is currently the middle of the day. The fall vibes are officially strong in this video, and I'm so looking forward to sharing what is going on. I'm actually going to put an apron on right now and make lunch because it is actually the middle of my workday, so I can't start reading quite yet, but soon, and I promise to document the whole process because I truly cannot wait. And lunch is served. All right, friends, we are doing an afternoon cup of coffee. We're gonna sit down and start one of my 2 books. I'm so excited to read both of them. I actually don't know what I want to start with. I've also changed into more comfortable clothes, and tonight should be so fun because my friend Emily's coming over. We're gonna make dinner, and I think we're gonna start over the garden wall, which neither of us have seen before, and it gives very appropriate cozy fall vibes. So I gotta get reading it now because I'm gonna be hanging tonight. You know how it goes. That social calendar is full, or I'm trying to make it more full this year, which has been working out and it's been so fun. So anyway, I'm gonna decide which book I'm gonna pick up. I don't know which one. I wanna read them both. So friends, we are starting dinner. I am making chili tonight, which should be quick, easy, and delicious. All of my favorite things. So let's get chopping. Chili and cornbread cam. Hello friends, I am in bed. I'm about to do some more reading. I owe y'all a reading update, but tonight was so fun. We ate chili, hung out, watched Interview with the Vampire, which was very seasonally appropriate. None of us had seen that movie before, and let me tell you, it was a ride. I didn't know what to expect, but it wasn't that. But I did finally decide on a book, and I went with Godkiller, which I have started. I've read 50 pages. This book is multi-POV. The writing style I'm really liking, and the setting and ambiance of it are really interesting. The quest aspect of this book has not started yet, but we're basically introduced to a fantasy world where there are gods, like large and small. Gods that have been around for thousands of years that are really, really powerful, and then other gods that just kind of can appear and just be kind of like a god of a local stream. So like the scale of gods can be very varied. Prior to the start of this novel, it seemed like gods had a lot of power, which you would assume. They were politically important. People, you know, worshipped them. They were a large part of society. But then a war and conflict seemed to have happened. You know, gods are outlawed. And again, one of the main characters we read and follow is a god killer. We follow a young girl who has like a god companion who is the god of white lies, and they're like linked to one another. We follow a knight who is no longer a knight and is a baker, but he has a history and a lot of trauma from the god war. I've only read 50 pages. None of these characters have really had much intersection yet, but I really like the writing style. It's very engrossing, and it very much has a very fairy tale-esque quality to it, I guess. And it's really hooking me so far. So I'm going to sit down now and read more. So far, so good, but I have much left to discover. Hello, good morning. I have been reading. I have made really good progress with Godkiller. This book is just under 300 pages, and I am past the 150 page mark, so 50% of the way done. But so far, I have to say, I'm really liking Godkiller. I had a general idea of what the tropes that were present in this book, and like obviously a general synopsis before reading it, because I did read the inside jacket, but I'm really impressed with, one, the amount of like world building the author's been able to create in not a lot of time, and two, how endearing and likable all the characters are right off the bat. This book is dark, and there's a heavy presence of trauma that exists within this fantasy world, but clearly, I think anyway, the storyline of unlikely people being brought together in some type of like quest found family situation. So it's not cozy by any means. This book has a lot of action and triggers and all of that stuff, but it's more, but it definitely has a sort of endearing human quality to it alongside a fantasy plotline. So to get more specific, the world building is impressive to me because I feel like the author has done a good job explaining what needs to be explained, and then just like not focusing on all of the little details, because this book is not very long, but I feel like she's done a really good job establishing like that this is kind of a medieval setting, fantasy world. There are gods, lots of different gods. There are old gods that are incredibly powerful. There are newer gods that kind of can pop up and they have a smaller purview. We know that gods are very ingrained within society. Communities worship different gods. Gods can either take advantage or be an integral part of a community on a daily basis. It is differing depending on the situation. We also know that there was a war within this generation that killed off many of the gods, and the consequences of this are still impacting everyone. Some people hate gods, some people miss and still secretly worship their gods. It's a very complicated landscape that has a lot of nuance, and it creates a very interesting setting for this book to take place in, especially given the characters that we're following that are, again, are very unlikely to be traveling together, but find themselves to be doing so. We have one of our main characters, Kissian, who I really like. She is a god killer, and she definitely gives like almost Witcher vibes. She is very talented within her profession. She's kind of crass. She's kind of cold. She has a lot of barbs up. She doesn't really like to get close to people, but she does have people that are close to her and that she loves very much and she protects with an intensity, but she doesn't really let people in. And she definitely just has that like mercenary vibe, but she comes across this young girl in a town who tries to hire her because she has a god that somehow has gotten like attached to her since early childhood, Nara, and she is like really sweet. She lived a very sheltered life within her mother's home. She's dealing with a lot of heartbreak at the beginning of this novel, and she's really close to this little god that she has lived with her entire life, and they're deeply connected and they communicate with one another. They share kind of powers, and they both want freedom for the other, but they also will like protect each other too. And mystery, I think, is pretty important to this book. And we also actually read from the little god's point of view, who is the god of white lies. And I also like them. It's interesting because it's like humanizing this sort of godly aspect of this story, because gods, like humans, can be fickle and take advantage, which clearly happened based on the previous war. But gods also can't help their own nature, and does that mean they're not then allowed to exist like any of them? And that's kind of the larger question at play. And then the last perspective we follow is Elo, and he was a commander of knights for the king who took over, and the king who's also banned all gods. He retired from being a knight because of just like the trauma and the experience of being one. He also didn't believe in a lot of the policies and laws that the king was putting forward, so he left to become a baker, but he's been feeling very, very lost for a while. They all find themselves on this pilgrimage to go to this city of gods that has been destroyed. The Kissian and Inara are going together to try to find the answer of why this god is attached to her, and Elo is going on this quest to try to help his friend. They find themselves now all traveling together, and it's just such an interesting makeup. Like, I'm really intrigued by this fantasy world. I think the setting is really, as I said, complex and nuanced and like very emotional. I like all of these god inputs, like big and small, as being part of the story and the community, and there's just a lot there to ponder on. I love the combination of all of the different personalities of these characters and how they interact with each other, and I can already just see this like forming of camaraderie in an unlikely place, and I feel like it's going to be like an emotional story. I also feel like this book is one you kind of have to read, I do anyway, read pretty slowly, because it's not a long fantasy book, but I also feel like the author is very intentional with every phrase or word she uses, so a lot of information is disseminated in like not a lot of space. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to miss anything, because there is, again, like world building, character building, just kind of like compressed. It doesn't feel clunky, but it does feel like you gotta pay attention, you know? At least that's how I feel. But yeah, so far I'm really liking this book. The writing style, the setting, the ambiance, the setup. I just love a quest story. I love a god-based story. So there's just a lot of inputs I like. But I also just feel like the author is creating a bigger world than I was anticipating. And I like that. Like a more emotional, thought out world too. And I love all the baking elements to this. Like Elo is such a good baker, and he makes me hungry because I love bread. So yeah, so far so good. I'm really liking this book. I'm gonna try to finish it today. That's my plan, and then move on to A Study in Drowning. But yeah, so far so good. My current hyperfixation is oatmeal. I just love pasty oatmeal. What can I say? Something about the texture of it. Put a lot of fruit in there. Clay's making a lot of noise. I can't wait to eat this. Reprise of the chili. We love leftovers. We even have cornbread, and we're gonna watch some Below Deck Mediterranean. A nice relaxing night. A very relaxing night in again. We're definitely on a vampire kick because we watched Interview with the Vampire last night, but Clay and I have also recently really gotten into What We Do in the Shadows. I usually watch it while I'm Legoing, but tonight we'll just watch it by itself. It's just so funny. Halloween M&M cookies, a very necessary evening treat. Self away from What We Do in the Shadows. I am completely addicted to that show, the aesthetic, Nadia. I also painted my nails. Burnt orange, hook 'em. But I am now in bed, and I am going to be doing more reading of Godkiller, which I am liking so much. So I'm gonna see how late I can stay up, see how much I can read. Again, my hope is to finish this book very, very soon. I'm curious to see how it's going to progress. I don't believe this is a standalone, but I'm just so endeared to the characters, and I love their connection together, and I'm excited to see that like grow, because right now we're still in those beginning stages of people like learning to trust each other unexpectedly, and I can't wait to see them in different situations and like see that trust, you know what I mean? I'm just excited. I don't even know if this has romance, and even if it doesn't have romance, it doesn't need it, because there's going to be other types of relationships, but if it does have romance, I wouldn't be opposed, which is a good feeling, you know? Anyway, so time to get reading. Good morning, everyone. It absolutely poured rain last night, so we have a very gloomy day. And also, we have no bed at the moment. We are getting a new bed. It's being delivered today, so Clay and I spent this past morning disassembling, cleaning, laying down, this rug, which has been rolled up over there for like 8 months. Funny how that happens. So now we're all set for our new bed delivery, which I'm so excited about. It's a little bit of a pop of color, a little bold moment. We're slowly beginning the process of decorating our primary bedroom, though we're so far from even really tackling it at the same time. But this will make a huge impact and we're both so excited about it. But now that this is done, I'm gonna pour myself a cup of coffee and do some reading, as I feel like I deserve, and get some work done too. Look at this gloomy, dreary weather. We love to see it. Coffee? Let's read. Oh yeah, I'm dressed. I don't even know why I'm dressed, but I am, so I'm impressed with that. Hi friends, I'm here with a reading update because I am almost done with Godkiller and I'm really liking this book. I like, how do I say? This plot feels like smaller scale and more character led, but the larger movements of this fantasy world are still important, but they're kind of in the background, which I'm honestly enjoying. This is like an emotional story. I've loved learning about the pasts of all of the characters that we're following. Kissian is such a great, like, Godkiller like character. She's very, very capable. And just seeing her like slowly warm up to people around her has just been so endearing. I love Inara. I love her journey of finding like her own personal strength because she has never really had the opportunity to leave her home. She's also younger, and kind of like the nuanced nature of a lot of relationships within this book. Inara with everyone around her, everyone, you know, with everyone around them, but also with her relationship with her god, and kind of like, again, this sort of conversation about gods in general in this book. And then we have Elo, who is going on this quest to help his friend, who is also the king. So there is like a political significance with what he's doing, but his motivations have more to do with the fact that he just loves his friend. And he has a lot of, you know, dissonance too, because he doesn't necessarily agree with everything his friend does. And his friend is also the king. But in the background of all of this is a quest of like individual pursuit for these characters, but there are like larger political happenings happening in this world, like a rebellion or a bubbling rebellion, which is also starting to impact them too. So we're getting like smatterings of like additional world building and like larger political movements like impacting them, but it still feels like this very isolated personal quest. And I love the development of the characters. I love the development of the relationship, and it's just like really working for me. It has such a nice quality to it, a kind of a darkness but a lightness. Like, it's just, the vibes are definitely there, and I'm finding it to be a very compelling book, and I'm really looking forward to see how the whole thing is going to end. I really don't know. Again, it's a quest story, so we're kind of like reaching the final destination, but what our characters are going to find when they get there is unclear to us at this junction. It's great, and I'm gonna finish it now. I was supposed to finish it yesterday, I did not, but we are gonna finish it now. Let's make lunch, and this lunch is so good and so easy. Hold. We made little burrata toasties, so I'm gonna go sit down and enjoy this. Got a little bit chaotic, but we're about to run out and leave the house and meet some friends for dinner. I am wearing this cute fall dress, and I'm gonna show you guys our new bed. So this is the new bed. I am so obsessed. I feel like it's so cozy. I love the pop of color. I love the fabric. And truth be told, our room is a little too narrow to have a footboard. So not having a footboard is super great as well. But I just love this like plum color. It's so cool. And it's actually like a slipcover bed, so we could change the color if we wanted to down the line, which I also like, but whoop, almost fell. But yeah, I'm so happy with this, and I'm so happy it got here safely. So, new bed.
Yeah.
No, why? Are you supposed
The ground shifts.
Yeah. Oh my god. Clay and I just watched Chicago's first victory in a year.
What do you have in mind?
Yeah.
Literally a year.
Oh yeah. It's been a long
So
time coming.
on that note, I'm gonna go read and relish in this incredible
By the time he decides.
moment. Hello friends, I've quite literally just woken up. The coffee is brewing and I thought, you know, what a better time than now to do a reading update. So I have not updated y'all, but I have finished Godkiller by Hannah Kaner and I really liked this book. I feel like it balanced great characters, an interesting plot, and then by the end the plot really picked up. I loved seeing the connections being formed between our characters and the setting. And the setting in itself was just like a really interesting one, and the history, there's just like a lot of baggage that everyone has, and that trauma was not only created by the world but was also being continued by the world, and like seeing people like try to let their guard down or like decide to take a new path on life. Why are you doing this to me?
I don't do anything.
Was really awesome to see, and the ending was amazing, and I can't wait for the next book within this series. So yeah, I really like Godkiller. I would highly recommend it. I feel like it had some really wonderful inputs, but now this morning I've officially pivoted over to A Study in Drowning. I read a whole whopping 6 pages before I fell asleep last night, so not much to say here. But so far, I like our main character Effie quite a bit, but I'm gonna read more this morning before I do like an official reading update, but I just wanted to let you know I did start it. And the books themselves have a similar hardcover vibe. I am dressed for the day. And I wanted to do a reading update of A Study in Drowning. This book is deceptively a lot longer than it looks. This book is like 400 pages long. But I'm so happy to report that I'm really liking this book so far. As a lot of people imply in their reviews, I would say this book has a lot more depth to it than I think what might initially appear from the synopsis. Like, yes, this has some beloved tropes. We have kind of an academic setting, academic rivals to lovers, fae, folklore, all of those things. But the character work that Ava Reed includes in this, and also just some of the inputs for the setting inspiration and just the character dynamics, is a lot heavier than I think might appear from the outside. With that in mind, I do want to say some trigger warnings for assault, anxiety, panic attacks, in general, like abuse and neglect by society, from parents. All of those things are kind of included within the story. But let's take a step back and chat more about what this book is about and my thoughts and feelings of it so far. So in this book, we're introduced to our main character, Effie, and she is a really bright young woman, and she has always loved stories. And you get this sense really quickly that Effie has a few things going on. One, that she seems to have always seen things that other people have told her weren't there. So she's always struggled with being not believed, and 2, being kind of taught that her brain isn't as functioning as it should be. Growing up, because of this, she's always found solace in a particular set of fairy tales or fae-based stories by her favorite author. This book is set in a fantasy world that is like kind of like a fantasy historical setting. It's not our world, but it feels very much inspired by our world. It has almost like a turn of the century vibe. It's set in a place where there are 2 countries that are very close to each other, and they have hated each other for as long as anyone can remember, and they've been at war with each other for a very long time. A lot of it has to do with like cultural hatred, but an interesting part of it is like each country sort of claims the other, what they perceive as their own culture for themselves, but then the other side also claims it. So there's a lot of like competition when it comes to culture. So this can kind of translate to writing and the arts. Because of this, in where our main character is from, like writing stories and authors are considered like almost like war heroes, and they're just very, very significant. So being a literature student and being accepted into the College of Literature is the most like prestigious station, I suppose, but they don't accept women. So despite the fact that Effie had like the highest scores and a dream of pursuing literature, she wasn't accepted into this college. So she decided to pursue the second most prestigious college, which is the School of Architecture, and she's the only woman currently enrolled. And when we're first introduced to Effie, we get the sense that something is wrong. She is struggling a lot with panic and like extreme anxiety. She's not happy in school, and all of the students treat her really poorly. And in fact, like any interaction with a male student or just a male colleague immediately sets her on edge, but like almost into immense panic. And you quickly gather that something happened to her between herself and an older male like teacher that she's supposed to be able to trust, and this has like disseminated across the school, and she, instead of being treated as like a victim, is like ostracized even further than she already was, being the only woman in the department. So at the beginning of this book, she comes across this competition where basically her favorite author's estate is offering young architect students an opportunity to submit bids or ideas to basically transform their estate. Effie wins, and we follow Effie as she then leaves the school, which she's already struggling deeply in for a variety of reasons, travel to this estate hoping to kind of find solace and answers and direction in her life. But she finds instead a very strange locale. The house is falling apart. The son who lives there is kind of strange, and she also runs into this student who's also visiting from her university, who she immediately does not like, and they have this like immediate back and forth. And we kind of watch Effie as she begins to get settled into this very strange place, learn more about the Fae, and also work to try to figure out what to do with this house. So there's a lot of inputs going on with this story, and I'm really, really liking it. Effie as a main character is very complex, very rootable, but like also incredibly capable. But at the beginning of the story, she's very clearly struggling immensely. And I do feel like Ava Reed captures this character with a lot of empathy and care. She is very clearly in a very difficult spot in her life, and she's trying to process a lot of trauma and figure out how to carry on. And a lot of that, and this is very central to her narrative and her perspective. And as a reader, we're just sort of piecing together her life, her backstory, and also what's happened to her. But alongside of that, we also have this new setting, this new mystery. There's very clearly some type of magical happenstance happening in this world, and the writing style, I truly cannot emphasize enough, is so good. It's beautiful, and how our author is capturing our characters, but also the sort of fantasy, magical influence of this place is just working really well. This sort of vague historical setting with the conflict, I also think is a really interesting setting for this book to take place in. I think it's important to note that her academic rival is actually from the other country, the neighboring country, and there is some clear misunderstanding and also just mistreatment between these two countries, which is also a big part of this book too. I don't know, it's just really captured me right away. I feel like the author's been able to include a lot of plot and context and building up of these characters in this place with not a lot of space, and the writing style is so beautiful, and there's just this mystery too that sort of grasps you right away, like what is happening on this crumbling estate, like something seems off, you know what I mean? And watching Effie, kind of what I imagine is going to be a really intense character arc and journey, I'm looking forward to reading and exploring. But I've read a fourth of it so far. I have a lot of this book left, but I'm really impressed with the first chunk I've been able to read, and another great book for the books, you know? Making an ultra quick lunch today, just some tomato soup and toast. A classic that always lands, you know what I mean? Gonna eat. Matilda the Sunshine Queen, thriving in the fall afternoon light with her toys, as she should. And I'm about to have an afternoon cup of coffee. I have already done some reading today, and I owe y'all a reading update, and I'm also gonna sit down and do even more reading. So, a lot to discuss. Cheers, everyone. So, great news. I've read 170 pages of A Study in Drowning, and I'm really impressed by this book. One, just the writing style, amazing. The character work, really good. The plot and concept, excellent. The setting, fascinating. Like, all of the inputs are really working for me. So my last check-in, I talked in depth about Effie's background and also the conflict that exists between these two countries. But I also think it's important to note that culturally within the country that this book is set in, there's also a divide between the North and the South. Predominantly, the North is kind of where all the wealth and privilege exists. And in the South, it is more the countryside. The South is also known to be more superstitious, and it's considered like a backwater by its northern compatriots. And there's also this very impactful event called the drowning. Like, the land in the South is like slowly being consumed by the ocean, and like entire communities many generations ago were completely lost in something called the drowning. And the South is always terrified that another drowning could happen. So there's a lot of superstition and association with folklore and fae to prevent this second drowning, and this work of fiction that our main character is really obsessed with is also kind of associated with this sort of concept. So I think that's an important dynamic to have in mind while reading this book. But we follow Effie as she gets established in this new household, and you very clearly get a sense that like something is just like bizarre. So the house is bizarre, the son is bizarre, and there's something that's like kind of creepy and unsettling about this place. And it's also important to know that Effie has seen the Fae King like her entire life as a kid, and part of the drugs she takes is to like prevent her from seeing him. And in some ways, since she's arrived, it's almost felt like his presence has like increased, and just like the magical eerie quality of this place is like increasing as well. Then we're also getting to know our other main character in this book, Preston, who I think is kind of described as supposedly this academic rival, but they very quickly forge this camaraderie. Like there's initial distrust or dislike, but very quickly I feel like they see a likeness in one another, and that they're both kind of ostracized and outcasted in the society that they long to be a part of so much. Like they both love art, they both love literature, but obviously our main character Effie is pushed aside because she's a woman, and Preston is pushed aside because he's from the other country, the northern country, and there's a lot of stereotypes, misconceptions, how people talk to them. It's terrible. And Effie initially really does not like Preston because Preston's working on a thesis to try to prove that the author of this famous work, who Effie loves, did not actually write the work. And they actually start working together on this project, Effie to kind of disprove his initial theory, but excited to be involved in the thesis altogether. And they begin to try to like unpack and solve this mystery because something does seem off. And the further you get in this book, like the more of a sense of like something else is very clearly going on, and it's not good, and it's eerie. But all is that to say though, I'm really liking this book. I'm really loving Effie as a main character. I'm loving her arc, her journey, and just the care and the empathy that the author has written this character. I love seeing her relationship with Preston, like the growing trust and just their interactions with one another is just like a really wonderful contrast to basically every other interaction, particularly with men in this book, which is another nice thing to read. The setting is eerie. Just everything about it is like really working for me, and I'm growing rather invested in this book. I'm liking it a lot. The writing style, I mean, I can see why this book is beloved because it really has a lot going for it, and it's hooking me quite a bit. So anyway, I'm going to sit down now and do more reading, but I wanted to give you an update because I'm about 50% of the way through officially. I have 100 pages left, past the 250 page mark. I'm feeling all types of things. I'm feeling unsettled. I'm feeling nervous. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling scared for Effie. I'm also curious. I have a lot of questions. I feel like the progression has really captured me, like this mystery surrounding this place, this mystery surrounding this author, and also the direction that the author is going, I think is working really well, both in the micro exploration of Effie's emotional trauma, but also like the societal trauma that's not just impacting Effie, but like lots of people. I think it's all kind of being reflected very well so far in this. But yeah, definitely gonna work on finishing this tonight. I'm liking this book a lot, and we're making some very good progress. Slay and I have spent the last like 48 hours powering through this fall puzzle. It's so cute. I got this puzzle table, life changer, and we watched a bunch of episodes of Vanderpump Rules. I completely lost track of time, but I'm now going to go in the bedroom and finish my book. Hi guys, and welcome to the end of the vlog. The next day, I'm happy to report I've officially finished A Study in Drowning, so that means I've completed both of these books for this vlog, and I want to say I've read about 700 pages, which I don't think is too bad. Starting off, let's talk about my final thoughts and feelings of A Study in Drowning since I've completed it. So I really liked this book. I enjoyed the pacing, I enjoyed the character arcs, I enjoyed this combination of folklore and storytelling, and I especially loved seeing the character story of our main character Effie, everything she's gone through, everything she is now facing, her kind of learning to trust and allowing herself to be loved, like all of those things I really appreciated. I will say the ending was probably my least favorite part of this book. And maybe it's because it's YA, I'm not entirely sure, but it just felt a little too buttoned up for me. I feel like for a story that had so much kind of like vibes and kind of it being a little vague, to its success, I feel like the ending was a little on the nose and a little prolonged and a little like rainbows and butterflies. Personally, maybe that says more about me, but I feel like it could have been, it could have had the message and the vibe that she wanted at the end, but I just feel like it could have been a bit more subtle, in my opinion. But I still really liked this book. And I think for a YA novel, just a lot of the messaging, the concepts, the storylines, I do think this is definitely worth the read. And I still really, really liked it. That's just like me being a little bit nitpicky. And then obviously I also read the entirety of Godkiller, which I loved so much. Quest story, unlikely characters, found family, relationships, just like a really beautiful tale. Set in a really complex and interesting fantasy world that had just a lot of emotion behind it. I've obviously gone on and on, but both of these books I would say are emotional heavy hitters. I also feel like both authors were able to pack quite the punch plot-wise, but also include a lot of things and not a lot of space, which I really appreciated. Both of these are also perfect fall reads, honestly, any time of year reads, but I really enjoyed reading them this fall. For the most part, I think both of them lived up to the hype quite a bit, and I would recommend them both. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye!